The good news that I share with you today is that God is rich in mercy. God is rich in mercy. Therefore, our prayers today will be for the grace to not let our past hold us back from coming to the God of mercy. Do not let your past to hold you back. Now, thinking about the God who is rich in mercy, I'm drawn to think about the journey of the people of Israel from Egypt to the promised land, the Exodus story. If you recall, during the Exodus story, several times they rebelled against God, they sinned against God. And during all those moments, we are told God contemplated destroying them, wiping them off the earth. But at each time, Moses pleaded to God to be merciful. Moses pleaded, asking God, remember the promise you made to the ancestors, to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, to lead them to this land of promise. Remember what people will be thinking, oh, that you brought them out to smother them in the desert. So Moses pleaded to God, be merciful. And in the end, God's mercy triumphed. Why? Because he eventually, throughout these pleadings, made the water part for them to walk as on dry ground, made manna rain down for them from heaven, gave them water from the rock, fought their battles, and granted them victories against all those who hated them. And finally, he brought them safe and sound into the land of promise. So, this is the background leading us to our first reading today, which was the celebration of this God who did not hold the people's transgressions against them to smother them, but was merciful that despite everything, he allowed his mercy to reign supreme, and so he brought them to the land of promise. And so that celebration of this God who did not hold their transgression against them was also regarded as a celebration that wiped away the shame of Egypt, wiped away the shame of slavery, and now brought them into a land where they live proudly and productively. Why? Because we are now told the manna stopped coming, so that the mercy of God that brought them to the land of promise, giving them the pride that they now have as a people with a land, was also one that helped them up to come to responsibility, to be productive. So through that, we come to the realization that the show of divine mercy comes with some responsibility attached. And this show of God's mercy is not to be taken as a license for irresponsibility. Now we can see the same sentiment come out in the prodigal son's story of our gospel today. You can say that the young man equally rebelled against his father, sinned against his father, to the extent of wishing the father dead. Why do I say this? He asked his father, give me the share of the patrimony that should come to me. And now, my friends, look at it yourself. Do you share patrimonies when the owner is still alive? No. It's only when the person has died. So for him to say, give me the share of the estate that should come to me, is that he wishes his father dead and forgotten. And that's why he's asking for that which has come to him. So there's a rebellion here. There is a sinfulness here. There's a rebellion that wants to be his own person, to live his own life, instead of being under the Father and doing what the Father wants him to do. And the Father gave him what he wanted, despite all these things. And when the Father gave him what he wanted, the Bible told us now he went away, as it were, in search of his own promised land. But did he find that promised land? No, he did not, because he forgot that there is a responsibility attached to the gift of that patrimony, to attach to the gift of that mercy that the Father showed him. He failed to remember there's responsibility attached to his independence. So instead of finding the promised land he thought, he now found shame, he now found hunger. And it was the hunger that led him through a journey. And what was that journey? From shame to seeking for pride. Shame because as a Jew, he's not even supposed to eat or touch pigs, but now he walks where pigs are kept. He's not even supposed to eat pigs, but now he's ready to eat the pig's food. What a shame. So instead of finding promised land, he found shame. Instead of finding abundance and plenty, he found hunger. And then he let the hunger bring him to the realization that his true promised land is not in moving away from the Father. His true promised land is not in doing what he wants, when he wants, how he wants. His true promised land is coming back to the Father's house, living under the Father's guidance, under the Father's supervision, doing what the Father wants. That's what he said. How much even of slaves in my Father's house have more than the one? But look at me here, famished. Now, like the prodigal son, like the people of Israel in that Exodus experience, we all have at one time or the other rebelled against God, sinned against God, and wandered away from the guidance of God as presented to us in the commandments. We all have, because we agree that we are all sinners. We have all presumed to know what is best for us, and nobody should tell us what to do. We want to celebrate independence and our freedom uninterruptedly. But despite this rebellion, despite this act of sinfulness and resistance of God and the plans of God and the path of God, God is still full of mercy towards us. And one evidence of that mercy of God is that we are alive today. Unfortunately, some of us think that being alive today is a divine endorsement of our actions, of our rebellion, of our way of life, instead of seeing it as a mercy, an act of mercy from God. We tend to forget what the psalmist tells us in Psalm 130, that if God should mark our guilt, none of us will survive. No one. My friends, think about that. If God was to have struck us down, each and every one of us, whenever we commit sin, how many of us will be standing or sitting at this moment listening to this reflection? We would all have been long dead. Nobody. Some of us take our independence as guilt for irresponsibility. Many of us take our independence as a guilt for non-productivity. We failed to remember that this is act of mercy of God. We failed to remember that it's the responsibility attached, that this pride we feel has to lead us to productivity. We want the manna to continue to fall. So if you are among those who mistake the mercy of God as endorsement of our pasts, our irresponsibilities, our acts of infidelities, if you look at it as an endorsement for you to continue in those ways of actions, remember that in this world we are only pilgrims. We are people on the move. This is not our eternal home. If you think that your pride, if you think your promised land is because of political independence, rethink about that, because this is not our eternal home. If you think that our promised land is because of the Bill of Rights that have been signed, rethink your mind about this type of thing. If you think that promised land is because of the entitlements and the growth of the entitlements and the handouts we get from government and from institutions, rethink those things. That's not the promised land. In his letter to the Philippians, chapter 3, verse 20, St. Paul told us that our citizenship is in heaven. And today he goes further to remind us that because our citizenship in heaven, and in realizing that at times we rebel and we sin, he says, now it is time for reconciliation, and now challenging you and me, challenging the church as an institution, that we are ambassadors for Christ, and as it were, God is making appeal through us, and that appeal is what? Be reconciled. Abandon the sin, abandon the holdbacks, and walk on on that pilgrim way, knowing where we are going. Be reconciled with God. But for this to happen, we must come to our senses like the prodigal son who came to his senses. We must accept the fact that where we are is not where we are supposed to be. We must accept the fact that the little handouts and the little beauties that we enjoy are not the best that we can enjoy. We cannot settle for less. We have a journey to make. Heaven is our destiny, not this world. This world is not our eternal home. And so any good we are enjoying here is nothing, it's a pittance compared to the glories and the joys of heaven. Any freedom we enjoy here is nothing compared to the freedom of the children of God. Any handouts we get here are nothing compared to the beauty and the glories that are going to be ours when we come home to God. We must accept that. So if hunger for material food brought the prodigal son to his senses, that made him make that journey home to become once again the son of the Father, let the hunger for heaven be that which ought you and I to take on that journey of reconciliation. And as we make this reconciliation, do not allow your past to hold you back. Remember, it is said that every saint had a past and every sinner has a future. We have a future. So do not allow your past to hold you back. If the prodigal son had allowed his past to hold him, he would have thought, I wished my dad dead. I squandered his wealth. I squandered his resources. I have abandoned my Jewish community. I have lost control and anything about my tribe and my ethnic community and everything. I've lost it. I have no pride again. I have no joy again. He would have remained in that place and he would have died in hunger. So he did not allow his past to hold him back. So you and I should not allow our past to hold us back. And if you are the brother of the prodigal son, remember, you have nothing to lose. Being under the Father's care and celebrating the return of your brother. You have nothing to lose. Everything is still there for you. You are still the son of the Father, and you have everything you need. So it is time for us to begin to celebrate the faith and each and every one of us, the return of each and every one of us. It is time for us now to become that ambassadors of reconciliation, bringing people to understand and to know that our God is a God who is rich in mercy. Our God is one who is really prodigal in his share of his mercy because he wants to welcome us back. Let's take that advantage. Let's take that opportunity and come back to God because he's rich in mercy. Do not allow your past to be an obstacle for you to make that return home. Because God is a God who is rich in mercy. He's a God of a second chance. Take your chance, my friends. God bless you.